as conference convener, it's been amazing fun, and I'm just here to soak up a bit of time, not really, but to try and wrap everything up, help you make sense of what you've been hearing over the past 2 days, and just tie a neat bow around it and send you on your way excited for Friday. So here's my clicker. So what did we hear about at the conference? I better find a better place for this. What did we hear about at the conference? Well, there was a huge theme around digital transformation and investment. We heard from Sir Brian, we heard from Chris Fechner, we heard from various luminaries at G'day. I love that way of saying Government Digital Delivery Agency, G'day. There's a real plan in place. I think we can all agree. There's a plan in place around what we need to do. It's just a case of courageously working towards that. We need to build towards that target state. We need to make a few sacrifices for the common good. We need to use digital public infrastructure. But it's great to have a plan. We also heard a lot about digital governance, and it does seem like we have a capability issue. It wasn't just Murray talking about this one, but it came from many corners. And I think it's good to name things, and then we can work towards those as well. There was also a really strong emphasis on how we need to keep designing things around humans and communities as well. We need to take a service design approach. We need to take a human-centered approach. We need to listen to communities. We need to bring our values, honour, utility, and all of that. Otherwise, we're building the wrong thing, and it's never going to work. Oh, there we go. There's the other bit. And then artificial intelligence, AI. It's all on. So I think we first touched on AI at Govis. It must have been 2 years ago when we had a ChatGPT generated conference opening statement in the style of a government minister, because the real minister didn't come. Then last year we had Minister Collins. I'm not getting my years mixed up. I think that's right. Minister Collins came. The real minister came and talked at length, including about AI. And then this year, we've got a whole stream on it. So AI, it's all on. And I'm just going to dig into this fourth theme here just a little bit, without it, hopefully without it becoming a soapbox for me. But there's some serious cognitive dissonance going on around AI. I was at a Health Informatics New Zealand conference about a year ago, and half of their AI talks were, boosters saying, oh, it's brilliant, it's going to change everything. And the other half were people who think very seriously and very carefully about clinical risk. And they were saying, oh, back off, slow down, this is a terrible idea. So, who do you listen to? What should we be believing? I did sciences at university, and I thought Thomas Kuhn was pretty cool. So someone who came up with this idea, the structure of scientific revolutions or paradigm shifts. So we go from one way of viewing the world to another, and it can be very disorienting while that's happening. And I think that's what we're going through right now with AI. And it's probably going to keep on shifting around for a few more years yet. So we've got a few narratives here. So the first set of narratives are from who I'll call the doomers in the kindest possible way. So we've got some simple narratives that come out. AI is an environmental menace. It's going to do bad things to the climate. It's going to use up water and electricity. But I think you've got to take these narratives and then become a bit more nuanced about them. So my nuanced take here would be, yes, it is consuming resources. Yes, it is doing damage. But, is it necessarily a lot worse than other kinds of heavy industry that we tolerate? Can AI help address environmental challenges? Quite possibly, if done in the right way. So I think we've got to take a nuanced view. And then there's another doomer narrative. So AI being detrimental to our very humanity. It's going to make us dumber. It's going to ruin our kids. It might even be impossible to control. And here are a couple of books. I've read the one on the right, and I've skimmed through the one on the left. And they're both really important critiques, I think, for AI. So the one on the left is lamenting, the loss of things that connect us as humans and ground us. The one on the right is putting out sort of Terminator scenarios, but much less cinematic ones, it has to be said, of where AI could possibly go. But even here we've got to become nuanced. The risks are real, but humans are incredibly adaptable, and maybe the best we can do is to slow things down until we're ready. But those risks, I think, they should be on the risk register. We can't we can't completely forget about those. Then we've got another set of narratives. These ones are from the boosters, the people who love AI. I think it's brilliant. So one narrative you might get here is, let's do AI to everything. It's great, why not? But of course, AI is powerful, but we've got to navigate that Gartner hype cycle as we learn how best to use it. There's that jagged frontier that Dr. Amanda talked about, where it's great at some things, but it's lamentably rubbish at other things, and that will look different for everybody and for every single role out there, and we all need to figure out how that maps to what we do. A similar one, so AI can actually replace human workers and save us money. And yeah, I think I got ahead of myself. It's really not that simple. We need to be looking at this role by role. And then finally, the boosters might say, well, these AI risks, they're overstated. We'll figure it out. We've figured these things out before. It's not really any worse. But just to check that, I thought I should quickly get into some of these AI risks. So I went and talked to Emma Humphrey, who did a really good presentation earlier, and I wanted to ask her, what do you think about AI risk? And who should we listen to? Who should we believe? And according to Emma, and it's hard to disagree, when something's as big and complicated as this, you really just need to look for the biggest group of academics that you can find. And here they are on the UN's Independent International Scientific Panel on AI, which just a couple of weeks ago has put out a preliminary report. I mean, in my eyes, this is probably the equivalent of the IPCC for climate change, who've been writing excellent reports which have turned out to be true, predictably true, up until now, and will probably keep on doing so. And this is what we've got in the same field for AI. And so the UN Secretary General summarises the whole thing saying that we can't govern what we can't understand. So we've got to do better. And let's see. Yeah, I'll go through this. So in the executive summary for the report, there are three. I've just got 3 slides here saying what it says. We need to work on these capabilities. AI is getting a lot better. There's a shift towards agents. The technology is advancing, is what this one says. The second one is about understanding and managing these risks. We've got potential negative impacts on human rights, social systems, and the environment. Looking ahead, the gap between rapidly improving capabilities and effective risk management methods may lead to catastrophic outcomes. Think about industrial accidents, all sorts of damage, all sorts of bad things that could happen. And then finally, there's an equity issue where AI risk is unevenly distributed and the wealth from AI is highly concentrated. So what do we need to do? We need to govern AI to unlock the benefits, mitigate the risks. So that's that panacea that we're always looking for, value and risk, balancing the two. And there's a lot of work for policymakers to do in this area. So there you go, you've heard it from the UN. But how do I simplify it? I think of things in terms of tools. So just give me a moment. For those of you who were here earlier this morning, you'll have seen this. This is my son's toolbox. He's painted it himself. And inside it, we've got a few tools. Now, let's see. This is his hammer. It's a little kiddie hammer. It can't do much, but it's a fun toy. And maybe it's a bit like the initial version of ChatGPT that came out in November 2022. It was cute, but a bit of a gimmick, let's be honest. Now I've got my hammer. It's a bit bigger, it's more versatile, it's genuinely useful, and this might be like the LLM tools that we have available today. And I don't have any more tools in here, but you've got to ask yourself, what will the next thing look like? It could be dangerous, We don't know what's going to come out of the box next. I do still have my PPE in here, my earmuffs, my gloves, my safety glasses. We're going to need PPE when we're using these more powerful models. At the moment, if I hit my finger with the hammer, it's sore, but it's not going to hurt me too badly. But that's just going to keep on changing. And so the point I'm getting at here is we should only conceive of AI as a tool. We must only conceive of AI as a tool. I'm a bit of a science fiction fan. I read the Dune books long before there were any movies or any good movies. And here are a couple of great quotes. So just indulge me for a minute here. This is, there's in the sort of prequel to Dune, there's this big war between humanity and machines. And this is kind of the allusion to that. Once men turned their thinking over to machines in the hope that this would set them free. but that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. And that's what Paul Kingsnorth in his book Against the Machine is. He's probably read this and is thinking about that too. And so anyway, there's a new religion that appears in the galaxy, and one of their tenets is that thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a man's mind. And, it's very sci-fi, but I think it's getting at something important, which is we must only conceive of AI as a tool. If we go further, if we hype it up beyond that, things just get a bit unhinged, and the risk and the governance goes out the window. And then, there's also this papal encyclical that came out recently, which I think is driving at the same thing there. And then my second narrative, trying to ground this a bit more, take it back to our jobs, back to our agencies. How can we do anything useful with AI? Well, I think I like to take a maturity model perspective on things. It keeps it simple. It gives us clear steps to follow, and you can proceed up through the levels in the maturity model in a way where you're still taking the risk seriously and not doing anything stupid. So first step is giving people access to tools. Probably all of our organisations have Copilot or something similar available now. This is probably where we were a couple of years ago. Adoption, making sure people are using the tools. I mean, that's similar to the previous step. Proficiency, making sure people are actually good at using the tools. They're getting value from them. It's not just sitting there unused or underutilised, or they're prompting something when they could be doing much more with setting up their own agents. This is where you're starting to encounter that jagged frontier and ask yourself hard questions about what you can do, what's unique and valuable about you as an employee versus the things that you should be delegating out or trying to automate. Number 4, it gets even more serious. We're starting to shake up our ways of working, our processes. Instead of your agents just being there to kind of help you out, there might be an agent that your team is using to do something. And then once a lot of that automation is there doing the transactional heavy lifting, we can get to the final step, which is reorganising, so shaking up our roles and our operating model further. And this is, it's wild to think about what that might look like. But there are organisations already doing this. I think Moderna, the vaccine manufacturer over in Europe, Germany, the UK, I'm not sure. I think they're well on their way through this. So, vaccines are being produced by organisations that are transforming themselves in this way. So that's my soapbox. So we have a new tool. It's getting a lot better. Will everyone remember that it's just a tool? Hopefully. Will access to the tool be equitable? Hopefully. And if we can't control the tool, we need to stop governing it. That's what we heard that from Sir Brian Roach. If governance isn't working, stop, try again. So I think it's a positive story, but one where we do need to have our heads screwed on for sure. So that's my soapbox. I'll stop that now.